Hello, everyone. Welcome to November's Aurelian Coaching webinar. My name is Nicole Coustier. I'm the founder of Aurelian Coaching. I am an executive performance coach, a life coach, and on the side, an advisor and a consultant for medical technology. But today, I invited everyone to this free webinar to talk about goal setting, not executing on goals, but setting goals. And here's the reason I wanted to talk about this, because when I coach people who are having trouble meeting their goals, I find that 50% of the time, the problem in actually executing on the goals has very little to do with execution. Half the time, it is a problem way more upstream than actually doing the activity that you need to do. A lot of times people don't understand how to set goals, how to pick your goals. And so there is a lot that needs to happen up front in deciding what you're going to be shooting for, right? Surfacing all the things that might get in your way in advance of actually starting to do anything, setting up goals, and then how to commit to something. So I wanted to take today and next week, if I'm going to be doing this again live next week, so next Friday, I want to talk about how to set a goal. And if you do that right, you're halfway there. Okay, so doing this whole exercise properly will probably put you on a path to actually meeting the goal in a way that it might not have before. Okay, so this is the problem that I usually see with people who have not set their goals properly. They are setting their goals by default. By default, they haven't actually thought about what they want. Okay, what do I mean by setting goals by default? There's actually two ways that I see that people set goals by default. One is they're already on a path. So they're on this path and they've done a thing and they set a goal that is just a little bit more than the thing that they just did. They haven't put more thought into it than that. If they're working in sales, they made $1 million in revenue last year. That's how much business they brought in. So, the next goal is 1.5 million. Default, whatever's next, add a little on top. Okay. Now, some people, I can already feel the responses. Nicole, what's wrong with that? That's good. You want to do more than you did before. That's a perfectly reasonable goal. Maybe. What I'm worried about is when I say by default, what I'm worried about is that people have not reevaluated what they want. And so they're just taking another step. They haven't actually reevaluated the path that they're on. And so they're just doing so when you pick the next step by default, you can see how you may have trouble executing on that if the path that you were on is maybe not the path that you want to be on, and you never thought to stop and think about that, right? Okay, so that's one way that people set a goal by default, is to just pick the next step without thinking about the path that they're on. The other way that people set goals by default is to not pick a thing that they genuinely want, but a thing that they ought to want, that they should want, right? That a good person wants, that a healthy person wants, that a smart person wants. You want to lose 15 pounds. You want to exercise more. You want to, whatever. Right. So a lot of goals fall into this category. A good, healthy, smart person is in a healthy BMI. Therefore, I want it because I ought to want that. Right. It makes me a good person to want that. Yeah, I've heard goals of, I want to do more nonfiction reading. Why? Why do you want to do that? Because good people are informed. Smart people read nonfiction. The people that I admire read nonfiction, and therefore that's something I should want and I should do. Okay, by default. Some people want to, spend more time with their kids, for example. Why? Because I'm only a good mom, or I would be a better mom if I spent more time with my kids. Okay. So if you're not setting goals by default, then how should you decide on your goals? You should decide on your goals by deciding what you want, not what other people want, not just what the next step is, but what you really want. Now, let me put it a different way, because so many people say, yeah, no, Nicole, I want those things. I want those things. Here's a different way of thinking about it. And this is how I coach my clients to deciding what they want. Is when I say what you want, what I mean is, do you feel desire? Do you feel desire for that thing that you have on your list and you've said it's a goal? Desire is an emotion. And so you feel it in your body somewhere. So depending on the individual, you might feel desire in your heart, right? Or you might feel desire in your gut, right? You might feel desire right here, right? Behind your jaw. But it's a physical sensation that when you think of that goal, you desire it. You don't just want it by default. You don't want it just on paper, but you feel desire. Okay. So when you feel desire for a thing, and then that's the thing that you go after, you are more likely to actually execute on that goal and get that goal. When you want it because it looks good on paper, right? It's just the next logical step to a thing. Or other people in my group and in my category of identity value those things. So therefore I want it because I'm part of that group, part of that tribe. Right? Just notice that unless you personally feel desire for that thing, yeah, chances are your behavior is not going to follow just wanting by default. You have to desire it. Okay. How on earth do you feel desire for a thing? Or how do you surface what you want to desire? How do you go through that? Okay. Now, I've coached on this before. I've talked about it before on webinars where I've talked about unfiltered, non-judgmental brainstorming to bring up all the things and then see what comes up for you, right? But I'm going to put it in a slightly different way this time. So this is the exercise that I want you to do. If you want to check that the goals that you're setting are goals that you actually desire, because if you feel the desire, that is going to motivate you, right? As you execute. Okay. So this is how you can tell. All right. I want you to go through an exercise where you imagine that you don't have any limitations or any obligations. Now, what do you desire? This is crazy, right? I get a lot of pushback on this because people are like, and I deal with, you know, like very accomplished people who have lots of, you know, talent, and they're ambitious and they're smart and all these things. And they push back on this. And they're like, this is not a practical exercise. And yet it is how you surface what you really want, what you really desire. Let's pretend you don't have limitations. Let's pretend that you don't have obligations. What do you want to do? What do you want to have? Admit what you want to have. Admit what you desire. Okay, it's a separate question about doing anything with this. This is just the first step in the exercise. So just give yourself permission to do the exercise. The equivalent is, so I'll use my daughter as an example. She's 8, okay? And when you ask her what she wants to be when she grows up, she says, I want to be a police officer and an astronaut. And what is the typical response to an 8-year-old saying something like that, right? Wow, that's fantastic, right? Or, well, you got to work really hard and you got to study hard, right? Those things are true. Nobody says that's crazy. You can't. No way, right? You say, yeah, she's 8, right? But notice that the desire, we are not clamping down on the desire for a thing, right? We may have thoughts about how practical it is, but that's a separate question, right? Desire and wanting is a natural human emotion and actually drives a lot of our behavior. So when we clamp down on desire and want, and then we're suddenly surprised why we don't meet our goals, there's a disconnect there, right? You have to allow yourself to desire something. So this is an equivalent exercise. An 8-year-old hasn't had a lot of programming in terms of all their limitations yet, right? An 8-year-old doesn't have a lot of programming or obligations yet, right? They're not an adult. They're not an adult. So they can want all the things. They can desire all the things. I want you to put yourself in that situation, right? Have fun with it. What if you didn't have any of your current obligations and you didn't have any limitations? And this is what I mean by limitations, right? So many times we filter what we want through things like, well, I'm not good at numbers, so I have to eliminate all these things. Yeah, don't do that for this exercise, right? Let's pretend you could do all the things, right? Let's just pretend that you didn't have any of these limitations and any of this conditioning and any of the circumstances, right? If you just narrow down to what feels so good when you think about it, what is that? Do you want to be an astronaut? Cool, write it down. Do you want to live on a farm with like 10 kids? Cool, write it down, right? Do you want to be a New York Times best-selling author? Is that something you desire? Write it down, write it down, right? Do you want to be an internationally known speaker? Do you want to be on the speaking circuit? Do you want people to clamor to interview you for your insight and your expertise on something? Okay, write it down. Write it down. Give yourself permission to feel desire for a thing. The exercise is not, well, now I feel like this is crazy because I can't get it, or oh, well, now I'm feeling all the things because it's going to be so much work to get there, or now I've defined what I want and now I'm feeling pressure to, now I have to go do it. No, this is an exercise in feeling desire. So write down, right? Remove all the filters. You have no limitations. You can be fantastic at numbers. You can be, the greatest artist. You can be the greatest whatever. Identify that, write it down. Okay. And then notice how desire feels. How desire feels. Maybe what you want is to be able to not have any conflict in your life at all. No conflict. What does that desire feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? Put yourself in that place, right? What does desire feel like? This is a very important exercise because when you go to pick your goals, I want you to pick goals, pick things that you desire. And if you can't get to desire, if looking at your current circumstance and all the things that you believe to be true about your life, if you can't find desire in that, then that's where this exercise comes into play. What I want you to do is eliminate all the filters, all the limitations, all the things. Put yourself back in your 8-year-old consciousness where you felt desire all the time. You felt desire to get on the swing set and you felt desire to eat candy, right? Whatever it is. Notice how that feels. Reconnect with that part of you so that when you come back into picking a real goal that you may actually want and desire, that you'll notice, you'll recognize it. Ah, that's desire. I know what that looks like. That's familiar to me now. I have a better chance of actually meeting that goal because I really want that for myself. Not because it's just the next step and not because I ought to or should or whatever. Okay. So, any comments, questions on this stuff? Okay. Okay, so I am moving on. Once you feel that desire, once you recognize it and get acquainted with it again, you may still be in that space of, but that's crazy, right? I'm not actually going to be an astronaut. I'm 45. Okay. Doesn't matter. Let's keep going. Okay. The next step in setting a goal that is not by default and will actually put you in a position to meet the goal is to simplify. So number one, you have to actually desire it. Number two, it can't be 20 steps to meet the goal. Okay, it needs to be simple, right? Like 1, 2, 3 things that you need to do to get the goal. So what does that look like? Okay, let's say you want to be an astronaut. Let's just keep going on this exercise. Okay, this is the second step, how to simplify once you've felt desire for a thing, right? You can come up with all the things that need to happen in order for you to be an astronaut and feel like, yep, there's no way, no way I will ever be an astronaut. When really, all you need is you need to know certain things, right? You need to have some expertise, and you have to actually study to acquire the knowledge that you need to be an astronaut. Okay. And then you need to train in the practical things. You have to know things to be an astronaut, and then you have to be trained in how to be an astronaut when you are up there doing things. I mean, really, that's it. I mean, I think that's it, right? You have to do some book learning, and then you have to do some practical, tactical training. That's it, right? If you wanted to live on a farm and be surrounded by 10 kids, right? What do you have to do? Get a farm and have kids. That's it. All right. The reason this is important is because we overcomplicate everything, all the things. And especially for my high achievers, my A-type personalities, my very, very accomplished clients, right? Not being able to see every single step along the road prevents them from doing anything. Unless they can see all 125 steps to becoming an astronaut, like nope, I can't do it. Here's what I want to tell you. Usually, there are just 1, 2, or 3 milestones between you and getting what you desire. Okay. And we skip this step. We skip this step because we are so focused on tactically, what do I have to do, right? How am I going to spend my time? And we get all wrapped up in that. I'm not saying that that's not important. What I'm saying is you're skipping over a critical step, which is, what are the milestones? How do we simplify this? Once you feel desire for a thing, if you want to be a New York Times bestselling author, there are 2 steps. You write a book and you publish the book. That's it. And I get a lot of resistance. I get a lot of resistance. Nicole, it's not that easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying you are setting yourself up to not execute. You're setting yourself up to give up because you overcomplicate things, right? You worry about not seeing the whole path, and therefore you throw your hands up. When really, one way of preventing you from giving up is to just simplify. 1, 2, 3 steps. There are just 3 miles between me and what I desire. It's just a couple of things, really, just a couple of things. Yes, you will still need to outline all the steps and execute on that. That's next month's webinar. But don't skip this critical step. I want you to simplify, right? I'm really, if anybody wants to share what their desire is, and again, it doesn't necessarily translate into a goal. This is the exercise that you go through if these things are not accessible to you in your current circumstance, right? So I want you to feel desire for a thing. That thing is probably going to be right for you. And then I want you to simplify and not overcomplicate the whole thing, but say, there are just a couple of things that I need to do. Step 1, step 2, If I get those 2 steps, I'm there. Okay. Do you know exactly how the path is going to go? No. You might not. And that's okay, because you know the 3 main steps that you need to hit. Okay. That keeps you anchored. It prevents overwhelm from creeping in, preventing you from doing all the things. Okay. All right. I have a question that says, are those steps big? It seems like they would be. Yeah, sure. Very, very big. Yeah. And remember that think of them more as milestones, right? What needs to happen for me to be where I am today to becoming an astronaut? I learn and then I train. To, being on the stage, I have to think of the thing that I'm passionate about and compelled to talk about, and then I have to land speaking gigs. That's it. 2 or 3 things, right? Those are big things, but they simplify. Okay. Now, I want to talk about, once you have simplified, now you are in a position where you can actually set goals, right? You are in a beautiful position to set goals at this point, because number one, you're not picking something by default. It's something that you actually desire. And number two, you haven't cut yourself off by overcomplicating and indulging in the confusion and the anxiety about how complicated it's all going to be, and the fact that you don't see the whole path. You know that A, B, C need to happen in order for me to get there. So now you're in a really great position to say, if that's my end goal, if that's my end game, if that's the condition that I want to create for myself, and I know there are just these 2 or 3 milestones to get there, okay, now you can set a goal. Okay. And you can use whatever. Some people use SMART goals. Some people use, I think it's Whoop. I don't know. They're all the things, right? You can set, I don't really care how you set the goal. Use whatever you want to use. Okay. But here's the other thing that needs to happen before you start executing, before you start doing all the things to try and get there, is you have to commit. You have to commit to it. What does that even mean? What does it mean to commit? So many people just think it's a statement that you make, or it's a decision, right? You decide to commit. Done. Yeah, no, that's not all. You can't just say it. Here's the difference between setting a goal and committing, truly committing to it, versus not. This is the difference. Are you ready? You have to believe. Commitment is belief. Okay, so let me give some other examples. Okay. You think about the things that you are already committed to, right? Maybe it has to do with family, right? Like, marriage or parenting or whatever. Or that you've committed to taking care of your elderly parents or something like that, right? Something where it's so crystal clear that you have totally already committed to that. That's like, it's not even questionable. You are so committed. Okay. Think about what you believe in that situation. What do you believe to be true about your marriage that you are 100% committed? What do you believe to be true about your parenting relationship or your kids, that you're 100% committed to your kids? Maybe you're in a startup and you're a co-founder and it is consuming your life. You're working 60-hour weeks to get this off the ground. You're committed in that situation. You are willing to work the 60 hours. Yeah. What do you believe about that? That represents the commitment. You have to believe a thing in order to be committed to it. Okay. You can't just think or say. You have to believe. Okay. So what is the difference between just thinking and saying something and truly being committed, truly believing the thing? Okay, here it is. You need to have an emotion associated with it. Okay. Belief about something is emotional. Okay. Just thinking and saying a thing that's a very mental exercise. Believing something and committing is the mental plus the emotional. So both in conjunction get you to the place of commitment. So how do you conjure up an emotion? Right? It's a lot easier for us to think a thing, right? And to say, yeah, I feel the desire for that thing. I've simplified and I want to commit, and yet I don't actually believe that I can do the thing, right? Or I don't believe what? That it can happen, that I can do it. So how do you foster belief in order to commit? All right. Whoo, guys, this is like ninja level stuff. Are people tracking with me? Okay. Do you want to know how to, mind blown. So nice. I'm glad I'm blowing your minds. Okay. And I'm glad I'm recording it so you guys can listen to it later. Okay. So a lot of people who I coach don't know that you can feel on purpose. This is another mind-blowing concept that I go through with some of my clients, where they come to me and they're experiencing an emotion, frustration, anger, disappointment, whatever it is, and then they feel like they have to deal with that emotion. And I always say, well, why don't you just feel something different? And they're like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm feeling this. And I'm like, no, you can choose. You can choose to move over to this other thing. And so this is one of those examples. You have to choose to feel a thing in order to believe it and commit to it. So how do you do that? Okay, I'm going to back up half a step and I'm going to talk about emotion as something that happens in our body, right? This is similar to desire. Desire you have to feel in your body, right? So emotion is the release of chemicals in your body. Neurotransmitters, hormones, right? Your body is actually releasing these things. It manifests in your body chemistry. So a lot of people, think that emotion is kind of this like ambiguous, like in the clouds thing. Like I feel love. I feel anxiety, right? And it's just this undefinable thing. But yeah, it's so not that. It is actually well defined in the body. When you feel good, when you feel joy and compassion and love and all of those happiness, contentment, all those things, your body's releasing dopamine, oxytocin, right? That's what your body is experiencing. Okay. When you're feeling anxiety, worry, right? All of those things, your body is releasing stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. You can literally measure this stuff. Okay. So emotion is a physical experience. Okay. So that's point number one. If it is a physical experience, you have some control over it. You have control over your bodies all the time, right? Exercising is a really great example. Exercising releases endorphins and you feel what? You feel an emotion. You feel accomplished. You feel strong, right? Feel happy. Yeah, you made that happen. You made that emotion. Endorphins, right? When you give somebody a hug, what's happening? Dopamine going up, right? Feels good. You did that. you held somebody. Somebody held you. You touched somebody. Releases all the chemicals. Okay. I want you to recognize that emotion is something that you can control. It's something that you can train your body to experience, right? Emotion is when you feel like a thing is just happening to you, it's simply because your body is conditioned to release those particular neurotransmitters and those chemicals. That's all. It's just your body is used to that. So you can recondition your body. So wild, right? So good. So on the negative side of things, right, when you feel anxiety and you keep telling yourself, I'm an anxious, or I have a client who said that she gets really anxious with clutter and disorganization. It just elevates her stress levels. So she doesn't even have to walk into a cluttered room to feel stress. Just thinking about it, her blood pressure goes up. That's just conditioning. That's just conditioning. Her body is holding on to that. Her body is like, oh yeah, that's familiar. I know when I have that thought, yep, this is how I react. These are the neurochemicals I release. Yeah, we know that. We're familiar with that, right? The good news is that you can totally recondition your body a different way. So you can feel on purpose, okay? And so this is what I want you to do. Ready? Okay. In order to commit, you have to believe a thing. So how do you believe something? Okay, I'm gonna, this is gonna get into some pretty kooky territory, guys, okay? But just track with me, okay? Part of this exercise that I'm gonna talk to you about is based on the research that shows that the chemicals that are released in your body and the brain waves, like they hook people up to machines to track your brain waves. The more you do a thing and the more that you are both visualizing and emotionally putting yourself in a particular place, the more your body will get used to it. And the more quickly it will get to that place. So at first, it might be really hard to believe a thing. Might be really hard, right? But the more you do it, the more the body starts to say, oh, okay, you want me to do this now. That's getting a little bit more familiar. And then eventually you can get to the point where your body's like, oh, feel good stuff. I totally know about this. Yeah. When you think about that thing, when you think about becoming an astronaut, dopamine, oxytocin, happy chemicals, right? So it does take practice. So here's what I want you to do. The thing that you desire so much, the thing that's specific to you and is not by default, It's not the next step. It's not just because everybody else does it. It's what you really want deep down inside. Okay. I want you to visualize that, but not just do the imagery. I want you to think about what it feels like when you're there. Okay. This is hard for some people at first. Okay. So say you, I keep going back to this random example of like, you want to live on a farm and raise 10 kids. I don't know why I picked that, but let's just say that that's the one, right? Okay. So what brings you so much joy about that situation? Like imagine, don't just create the vision of it, but try to feel what you would feel surrounded by all those children and that love and that the peace of the environment, right? You're no longer living in the concrete jungle. Now you're on this farm where you wake up to birds chirping. How does it feel to wake up to birds chirping? Like, what if you didn't have to wake up to an alarm? What would you feel like? Would you feel refreshed? Okay, let's say refreshed. Feel it in your body. Like, what does it feel like when you wake up refreshed? Right? When you don't have stress in your life or conflict in your life, say that's something that you desire more than anything else, right? And you simplify. So get rid of any conflict that you do have and learn how to manage any incoming conflict brilliantly. That's all you need to do, right? When you are living a life in some future where you have the complete absence of conflict, what does that feel like? Calm. Okay, calm. How do you experience calm? Put yourself in that. Notice, like, where do I feel calm in my body? Right? Some people might feel it in their head or in their neck. Some people might feel it in the expansion of their lungs, like their shoulders. Some people might feel in their hands, right? They notice that their hands are relaxed. I don't know what it is for you, but go through the exercise. This is how you believe, because when you believe a thing, you know it to be true. You know it mentally and you know it physically. You're 100% bought in. But it's hard to do that for a future goal, right? Because you've never done it. It's in the future. Okay. This is how to bridge that. You have to feel that future, not just think about it. It's not enough to think. I'm telling you, this is why affirmations are not enough. You can tell yourself that you're fantastic until you're blue in the face. But if you don't really believe it, if you don't feel, if you can't access what it feels like to be fantastic, yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Okay. That's it, guys. I want you to want something. I want you to desire it for yourself, just for yourself. And then I want you to simplify. Don't overcomplicate it. Just say, to get from here to there, I just have these big, huge steps, but there are only 3 of them. That's it. Only 3 steps to get there, right? And then you have to believe it. You have to know what it feels like in order to commit. Because these days, what commitment looks like and feels like is basically, it's like cross your fingers and hope. That's what a lot of people, that's how they approach commitment. They just say it, and then it's like, cross your fingers. Let's just hope that motivation comes at some point. No. You have to condition yourself to believe, to feel, to know with absolute certainty. This is how things become inevitable. How they become inevitable. When you are operating in the space of you know exactly what that looks and feels like, you will naturally make decisions to get there. You don't have to convince yourself, right? What you want to do is operate toward your goals the way you operate to things that you are already 100% totally, completely committed to. If that's your marriage, right? How you show up in your marriage as a totally committed person is fundamentally different than how you would approach any other relationship that you're not really committed to. It's different. You will show up differently in your life, operating toward your goals, in your activities, your mindset, your whatever, when you can commit, when you can believe that it's true for you. And that future is, it's just around the corner. There are steps that you need to take between here and there, but it's just there. This is waiting for you. Okay. So you have to practice how to feel on purpose. Okay, guys. To summarize, feel desire for a thing. If you don't know how to feel desire, or if you don't know how to access what you desire, do that crazy exercise where you just let go of all of your obligations and limitations and see what comes up, right? And then you will experience desire, so you will recognize it. And then you can take that into your current circumstances and say, well, now I know what desire feels like. So what do I desire in my current circumstances? Okay. Once you know what you desire, simplify, right? In order to get what I desire, 1, 2, 3 things. 3 things need to happen in order for me to get there. Okay. Then when you set goals that are what you desire and not overcomplicated, you can set those goals and then you commit. And the way you commit is you put yourself in that future version, and you know exactly how it feels. You know exactly how it feels. And because you know exactly how it feels, you can access that feeling anytime. You are reprogramming your body, reprogramming your mind, reprogramming how you show up in your life to go do the thing, to be that person. Those are the 3 things that you need to do to set the right goals for yourself. Okay. Now, next month in December, the webinar series will talk about, once you've done all of this, and again, this is half the battle, setting yourself up with the right goals, okay, and committing. Okay, so once you've done that, next month, you'll want to sign up for the free webinar in December, where I'm going to tell you then how to execute. Okay, so many people don't do this part. They just set the goals and then they start doing the things. And then they're suddenly surprised. Why don't I meet my goals? Sad face. We're going to tackle both of these. Okay. All right, guys. There any other questions, comments, anything? Let me know. Otherwise, I'll close up for today. We're going to do this again next Friday. So I'll go live next Friday again. And then, but everybody should get a recording to this. And then if you're not already on the email list, you need to get on it because that's where I notify you of when the next webinars are available. So go to aureliancoaching.com/free webinar to register. If you're not already on the email list, then you go to aureliancoaching.com/email. Sign up there. There's a nice free gift, a self-coaching guide for signing up. But that's how you're going to get, you can get information on our webinars. Okay, guys, have a fantastic rest of the day. And I will talk to you guys next time. Okay, bye.